Hey everyone, here to do a real quick update on Ethereum. So Ethereum is really quite interesting, but before I get started, of course, the normal disclaimers, not financial advice, my opinion on the market, and you're responsible for your own trades and all of that. I'm just giving my opinion on things. So I want to take just a little bit here to look at Ethereum. I promise I'll keep this a lot shorter than the last video. The last one I did on Bitcoin was about 20 minutes or so. I'm going to try and keep this about 5 minutes or less because there's, not a whole lot here to talk about other than, the trend. So let's start by taking a look at what we have. Starting up here at the top, which was at $1,400 back in January of 2018. The Ethereum structure looks so much different compared to Bitcoin. So while Bitcoin does control the USD price because the underlying trading pair on Ethereum is Ethereum versus Bitcoin, and through arbitrage and a lot of other things, these things are kept, on a tight, a tight trading um, ratio. So basically what that means is, as the price of Ethereum versus Bitcoin goes down or up, it is directly related to the price of Bitcoin versus US dollars. So Ethereum versus US dollar is just a direct relation to the price of Bitcoin versus the dollar by way of Ethereum versus Bitcoin. So what I can see here, though, is, of course, in all of 2018, Bitcoin was mostly going sideways. And on this point right here, this was April of 2018, it actually closed lower than February 6th. This is when Bitcoin hit $6,000. And then down here in March, April of 2018, Bitcoin was still sitting right around $6,000, but Ethereum was much lower. So I have to have a bearish bias on Ethereum because of that. And this is again back in 2018. So when we had this run back up, this was in May of 2018. So about a month and a half after, we had a good expansion as far as price, having some bullish reaction. We hit the trend line and we started to move back down. And we've been trading below that trend line, or at least we were trading below that trend line, all the way through April of 2019. So that's when we had the explosive move in Bitcoin. And one thing that I do want to point out here is the formation that we were seeing in Ethereum is a little different than what we were seeing on Bitcoin. So on Ethereum, we were seeing something like this start to occur, which is a pretty bullish pattern, because what we were seeing was the price find resistance, and then finally we kind of broke through and we started consolidating here, which happened to be above this trend line. So that trend line is what I want to focus on for the time being, because we had, of course, the top and our next retest. So that was a second touch that gave us our trend line. And you need at least, obviously, 2 touches on a trend line in order to confirm a trend line. Then when we got up through here, we wicked through it and we started consolidating above it. And right here, we tested it. These are the things that I talked about on the video that I did on Bitcoin back on Monday. I basically said, all right, well, we got this move up, we break through it, and then we're going to retest it before we eventually start to move back up again. That retest is the important part to confirming that change in trend. And we had that. I also talked about this a little bit on Ripple as well, but nonetheless, what I'm seeing here, we had 5 waves down, we had a little bit of a correction, then in my opinion what we see is we see a 1, 2, 3, and then we have a wedge on the 4, which is pretty common for a 4th wave, and then we had our 5 to get us all the way down here to $80. So this is also what looks to me like a 5-wave structure, which would look very similar to this. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we come down here for the 5. A little bit of an extension on the 5th, but that's not a huge deal. And then what did we have? Well, we saw basically a good move up, and in my opinion, likely what we're actually doing is we are working on correcting further down. However, we're consolidating in a zone on Ethereum, which is basically between the 618 and the 705. You know, we did break through it, which is a little bit bearish. I do think that there is potential for us to move down a little bit further. You know, but when we're talking about support and resistance levels, this is a classic case. Okay, so I'm going to zoom out a bit, going all the way back to May of 2017 when Ethereum was trading between $75 and $100. When it was trying to break $100, we had a good trading range here for probably about a week and a half before we finally did break through it and go up, right? And then we went into a wedge. And this was also looks a little bit like a 4, like an A, B, C, D, E. And then we went up here for our 5 wave. And then we're starting, of course, the big correction. And the big question is, you know, was $80 the bottom? Just like everybody's asking, is 3,100 the bottom on Bitcoin? But what I can definitely see here is new support formed after we had the resistance back here. We had new support that was formed here, and it was confirmed through this consolidation right here. So this consolidation cluster that took us all the way up to 360 some dollars, 365 or so. This cluster right here should be pretty significant support. So I would be very, very careful shorting in this area right here. I would be more inclined to look for long positions in this range about right here. This is kind of where I would be looking for. So let me just go ahead and outline this. I do expect there to be a decent amount of support in this area right here. And this is between $125 and $140. So what I'm not sure of, and you know, time will tell on this, what I'm not sure of is if the 5 is in, or if this is a 1, 2, and we're going to go down for a 3, 4, 5, and the 5 might actually be all the way down here. So that is something to pay close attention to. What that would mean, though, is as far as market structure goes, we're basically looking for a 1, 2, and then we're going to be creating more or less a wedge, 3, 4, 5. So very likely something like this is going to happen, and it's going to look a little bit like this. So we're going to start with this, and then we'll just go ahead and make a change to our projections here. So okay, so what I have here, and going up, and then likely this would probably come down here. We'd have another move up here. And then this 5 potentially would be going somewhere around here, which is about $135. This is likely the case. That's likely what could happen. You know, we may want to make a couple small changes to this here and there, but nonetheless, I would expect there to be some kind of a lagging diagonal, or basically a trailing diagonal for ending this corrective cycle down here at 135 to move back up. Very similar to Bitcoin, right? So I talked about Bitcoin earlier today. You can watch the video if you'd like. But you know, again, looking at 7,000 to 7,500 would take Ethereum down here to this levels as well before it finally does start to move up and out of this. And I would again be looking for a move similar like I was talking with Bitcoin for an A, B, or sorry, a 1, 2, and then a 3, 4, finding this as new support, and then going up here to 5 to create that double top, and then we kind of reassess things from there. But again, I would expect some kind of a falling wedge to be forming here, and once we are able to break out of this, and I think this is the trend line to be paying the most attention to. So pay attention to that trend line and keep an eye on it, because once we do finally break through it, I would be looking to long any dips or any retest of that trend line as we come back to it and break out of it. That's what I would be looking for. So I promise I keep it short, 9 minutes. Feel free, again, if you have any questions, ask them in the Discord, like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. And thanks for watching.